Hey you. It is really hard to explain to modern men and women, especially the younger ones, how and why language matters. Why the words we use to and about people make a difference. The presumption of alleged equality between all people is now so taken for granted, at least as a concept, if not an actual reality, that they simply do not see or understand the historical struggle that has taken place to get us to where we are now. They don't see why language matters. This came up quite recently for me, when I was roundly castigated online for calling a man on the fact that he had issued an invitation to only girl D&D players. I pointed out that girl is a term which means female child and not adult woman, and that when applied by a man to a group of women, it is potentially infantilizing, patronising, and offensive. But almost no one in the group seemed to get that as a concept. Not the man in question, not most of the men in the group, and not even the majority of the young women in the group either. The response to my issue was not a thoughtful and reflective, "Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, didn't mean it, soz, won't do it again," but rather an aggressive and unpleasant, "You are oversensitive, it's not a problem, lots of women don't mind, you should grow up." And while I may be sensitive, nevertheless it is a problem. Lots of women do mind. And as a grandmother in my late 50s, I'm plenty grown up enough already. Thank you very much. Language shapes thought. It reinforces stereotypes and it models acceptable behaviour. So if what you say in some way causes an entire group to be thought of in a particular way, then you should probably make sure that such a word does not have connotations that will lead you to think of them in any way that is potentially undermining, patronising, condescending, derogatory, or dismissive. Yeah, I believe broadly in free speech. And as far as I'm concerned, you can say exactly what you please. But that does not mean you are immune to being called on the impact of what you say. Of course, I'm potentially a hypocrite. I use language imprecisely and thoughtlessly too. I'm no different to anybody else, and I use shorthand all the time. We all do. But if someone calls me on it and says, "I find this word that you have used to describe me and people like me problematic," I like to think that I would at least pause for thought, instead of having the knee-jerk response that can essentially be distilled as, "I could call you and people like you whatever the hell I please, get over yourself." It's true that a group may use the exact same word to describe themselves, but it's different when it comes from someone outside the group, especially if that someone is in a more privileged group. To women and others who use what might be thought of as a pejorative term for themselves and the people like themselves, and then who say, "Well, if we do it, then everybody has to have the right to do it as well," I say, no, that's not the way it works. Your choices for what to call yourself and your fellows with any given characteristic, and if they agree, are by definition your choice. So if you are a woman and occasionally call yourself a girl, a lesbian and occasionally call yourself a dyke, a Jew and occasionally refer to yourself as a kike, Or if you are, and here's a trigger warning for really offensive words, James Baldwin or Samuel L. Jackson, or you're a person of colour and you occasionally call yourself a nigger, that's fine. That's your choice. Go for it. But if someone else not a member of that group, takes such words and uses them in a way that demeans or condescends to you, which is deliberately or inadvertently offensive, or is a code for something repugnant or bigoted or even just arrogantly privileged, then no, not okay. They don't have that right. They need to stop it at once and have the good grace to be ashamed. But back to the innocuous-looking word in question, a girl. Personally, I'm okay with the term woman, person, even female. I rarely aspire to being a lady, and whilst amongst ourselves I might even go for a girls' night out or say, "Atta girl," to a friend. Here's the thing. I have not actually been a girl, a female infant or child, for a very long time. So let's run the mostly tongue-in-cheek checklist and see. Girls, still going to school and doing as they're told because the law says they have to. Me, nope, barely pubescent. Good grief, no, I have children and I have grandchildren. Girl, has an ever-changing list of boy bands and heartthrobs to sigh over, hopelessly. Nope, not for decades. Girls, forced to wear gym skirts and knee-high socks. No, that's not my kink. Has bedtimes and curfews. No, I'll make my own mind up about when I go to bed, thank you very much. Girls, crushing self-consciousness about every single bit of face and body. No, not that either. See, I'm definitely not a girl anymore. I grew up. I'm a woman, and I went through the rough and tumble of adolescence and early adulthood. I got jobs, I had relationships, I gave birth to children, I endured heartache and bereavement. I have earned my stripes as a fully fledged adult woman with agency. And I won't let anyone put me back in the powerless childhood box by fiat, carelessness, or design. I am not a girl. And neither, I would hope, are any of the adult female people that person was inviting to play role-play games with. And if he was expecting actual girls to join him, then that's a whole different problem. To the man, or should I be calling him a boy, who told me that I personally, and indeed the whole debate, was just silly, and to those who vocally or tacitly agreed with him, I have this to say. I know that many people find my concern about language, attitudes, inclusion, responses to criticism, etc., silly. And they would much rather they could just get on with rolling the dice, living their life, doing what they wanted, and that I should just let it go. I know that's what you think. I get it. I'm actually as tired of fighting it as you are of hearing it. It's not fun having this debate ad nauseum, but it has to be done. Here's the thing. That you should simply let it go was the precise attitude taken back in the 1980s when the ratio of male players to female players in role-playing games was said to be something around the order of 73-1, a time when all female warrior types fought in the equivalent of a chainmail bikini. That was the precise attitude people took when feminists complained about the presumptive masculinity of all positions of authority, about headmasters and policemen and chairmen, and where anybody who didn't have a penis but occupied positions of authority had to be specifically referred to as a lady doctor or a woman police officer, and where girl, babe, chick, etc. was common parlance for women, and it served quite nicely to indicate their position in the pecking order, i.e., right at the bottom. Let it go is the rallying cry of those who object to Ms. instead of Miss and Mrs., defending to the last their right to know a woman's marital status without knowing them as people at all. Let it go is the cry of those who don't want to think about people who don't fit gender binary norms, who don't want to learn a different pronoun, as if them and they is so much harder to learn than any other piece of information, and as if it is their absolute right to specify in words and titles the shape of a person's genitals when speaking about them. Historically, such attitudes, especially in regard to women, and the universal use of diminutives or othering nomenclature harkens back to the time at which a white man could be automatically assumed to be in the position of power or expertise, and also could be automatically assumed to be in control of the women and the children and the others, since those sections of society had pretty much the same legal status as de facto property of some man or other. Those times that weren't so long ago are also times that many people still yearn for, secretly or sometimes quite openly, and quite frankly, sod that. Smash the goddamn patriarchy. My point here is that language not only reflects the society we have, but it helps shape our perception and the society we will have. So if you can't, or don't, or won't talk about specific kinds of people in positions of power, then it is harder to think of them as being in positions of power, and it's easier, therefore, to exclude them. If the words you routinely hear and use to describe specific sets of people lack respect, then it is harder to remember to respect them. And that's just wrong. So, silly woman I might be, but if one single person reading that thread or hearing this video takes a single moment to consider how their language might impact upon other people, if one person stops for one moment and uses more inclusive, more respectful, more accurate, more empowering language, if one single member of any less included group, be that a woman, a disabled person, a person of colour, or someone who is LGBTQ+, if one of them feels even slightly more able to say, hey, I don't really like how you referred to me and people like me because it feels demeaning, then I will count this as a victory. A silly one, perhaps, but a victory nonetheless. Language matters. Use it wisely. Till next time, ciao.